In 2012, Marvel made history when it brought together Earth's mightiest superheroes to fight as a team in what would become an epic, action-packed, award-winning film. Think you know the whole story? Well, think again. There are almost too many heroes to handle. Almost. The 107 facts you should know about the Avengers. Number 1. Read it and weep. Or cheer. The Avengers started as a comic book by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and was first released in September 1963. It was actually inspired by the success of DC Comics' Justice League. Number 2. Daredevil had a part to play in the Avengers' existence. Daredevil was not complete by its deadline, so Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the Avengers to compete with DC's Justice League. The pair brainstormed for a while, and then they came up with the Avengers. They hastily put together the first issue and sent it off to the printer, and the rest, well, the rest is history. Number 3. The Avengers hit shelves the same month as Uncanny X-Men 1. In 1963, and the two teams' paths have crossed plenty of times over the course of their adventures. Number 4. The origin of the film came in 2005, when Marvel Studios CEO Avi Arad announced plans to partner with Merrill Lynch and release a slate of Marvel feature films under Paramount Pictures. They plan to release films that introduced and established the Marvel superheroes before merging the characters in a crossover film, The Avengers. Number 5. X-Men Hulk and the Incredible Hulk screenwriter Zach Penn was brought on board to write the screenplay in 2007. Number 6. Paving the way for movies to come, Marvel's first film, Iron Man, was a huge hit and secured distribution rights for 5 future Marvel films with Paramount. Consequently, Robert Downey Jr. was the first Avenger to be cast. Number 7. In 2009, Samuel L. Jackson signed on for an unprecedented 9-picture deal with Marvel to appear as the comic book character Nick Fury, leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 8. Jackson as Nick Fury thanks in part to M. Night Shyamalan, and nobody's thanked that guy in a long time. When getting ready for Avengers, Whedon had a specific vision of Nick Fury, Mr. Glass. Whedon explained that he loves Samuel L. Jackson's many acting roles from Pulp Fiction and more, but it was M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable that sealed the deal. Number 9. Edward Norton had played the Hulk in 2008's The Incredible Hulk, and was in talks to return for the Avengers, but negotiations fell through. There were many rumors that Norton was extremely difficult to work with during the film, and was ultimately replaced by Mark Ruffalo, who had been the filmmaker's original choice for Dr. Bruce Banner / the Hulk in the first place. Number 10. After being replaced by Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, Norton released a statement claiming that Marvel was trying to paint him in a bad light, and that he declined to return because he didn't want to be associated with one character. Number 11. In 2009, Scarlett Johansson replaced Emily Blunt in portraying Natasha Romanoff in Iron Man 2. Number 12. Next, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston signed on to reprise their roles from Marvel's successful Thor film. Number 13. Soon after, Chris Evans was offered the role of Captain America in 3 films and the Avengers crossover film. Number 14. Captain America's shield is scratched in the film. Only die-hard comic book fans would know that this would not be possible, as in the comics his shield is made of adamantium / vibranium alloy, depending on the version, and can only be damaged on a molecular level. Number 15. Captain America actually wasn't part of the original comic book team. The team, which had dropped to 4 members due to the Hulk's departure, encountered a mysterious frozen man in the ocean while chasing Namor the Submariner. The frozen man turned out to be Steve Captain America Rogers, and thawing him out, the existing Avengers team granted Captain America founding member status in place of the Hulk. Number 16. TV and film veteran Joss Whedon signed on to direct and completely rewrote Penn's screenplay. At the time, Whedon was best known for his successful TV shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and Firefly. Number 17. Jeremy Renner was cast as Hawkeye, following his Academy Award nomination in the 2009 Best Picture winner, The Hurt Locker. Number 18. In 2010, the Walt Disney Studios agreed to pay Paramount at least $115 million for the worldwide distribution rights to Iron Man 3 and The Avengers, making the release of this film a bona fide event. Number 19. Although set in New York, the Big Apple doesn't deserve too much credit. In your face! The film was primarily shot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Cleveland, Ohio. Number 20. To ensure accuracy with the science of the film, the Science and Entertainment Exchange provided consultation. They've consulted with over 1,000 films and television shows. Number 21. Alison Hannigan, from Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, recommended her How I Met Your Mother co-star, Smulders, for the part of Maria Hill. Number 22. All in the Family, Hannigan's husband, Alex Denisof, played the other in the film. Number 23. Kobe Smulders was cast as Nick Fury's sidekick, Maria Hill, rounding out the main cast. While the How I Met Your Mother co-star's recommendation helped when it came to the casting decision, Smulders was already on Whedon's radar, having been once considered for his Wonder Woman adaptation at Warner Brothers. So it's no wonder she got the role. Number 24. Gwyneth Paltrow, Paul Bettany, and Stellan Skarsgård were asked to reprise their roles in the Marvel Universe. Robert Downey Jr. insisted on having Paltrow join the cast, as she was not going to originally appear. Number 25. Clark Gregg reprised his role as S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Coulson from Iron Man 2, and Thor. Number 26. A man of many hats, Gregg is also an accomplished director, having directed the film version of Chuck Palahniuk's cult book Choke in 2008. That won the Special Jury Prize at Sundance. Next up, Gregg has been in talks to direct, you bloody guessed it, a Marvel film. Number 27. Following the film, Gregg's special agent skills led him to star in Marvel's first network television show, an Avengers spin-off, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 28. Filming began in New Mexico in April 2011, then moved to Cleveland in August, where the city's East 9th Street was chosen as a double for New York City's 42nd Street to be used in the cinematic battle scenes. Who knew Ohio and the Big Apple had so much in common? Not me. I've never been to either of those places. Number 29. Army Reserve soldiers assigned to Columbus, Ohio-based 391st Military Police Battalion provided background action during the battle scenes in Cleveland to ensure authenticity. Number 30. The NASA Plumbrook Station Space Power Facility in Sandusky, OH, was used to portray the S.H.I.E.L.D. facility. Number 31. Although set in New York City, the film was actually shot there for a mere 2 days. Guess the production team decided if they can make it there, then they can also make it anywhere. Number 32. For scenes taking place in Manhattan, visual effects supervisor Jake Morrison shot aerial footage for over 3 days to use as background plates, stating that the main objective was to get as much aerial work in as possible for audiences to see. The big expanses, the wide establishing shots, while also making sure that the effects work doesn't look too computer generated. Number 33. Although the film was released in 3D and IMAX 3D, it was not shot in 3D. It wasn't converted until post-production. Number 34. The film contains more than 2,200 visual effects shots, completed by 14 different companies. Clearly the old too many cooks in the kitchen, or whatever that saying is, does not apply this time. Number 35. Industrial Light and Magic was the lead vendor, and she had responsibility in creating many of the film's key effects, including the helicarrier, the New York cityscape, digital body doubles, Iron Man, and the Hulk. Number 36. Weta took over duties from ILM for animating Iron Man during the Forest Duel. Weta claimed that the most difficult part was recreating Iron Man's reflective metal surfaces. Number 37. Digital Domain created the asteroid environment where Loki encounters the Other. Number 38. Iron Man was a huge hit for Marvel, therefore ensuring the Avengers film and also making Robert Downey Jr. a huge star. Downey Jr. initially pushed Whedon to make Tony Stark the lead and show the film from his perspective. They tried out a version like this, but it didn't work, so they kept the story an ensemble piece. Number 39. Concept illustrator and designer of Iron Man's Mark 7 armor, Phil Saunders, borrowed ideas that were proposed in Iron Man 2, as well as some ideas that were abandoned in Iron Man. He merged them together in a modular suit that has big ammo packs on the arms and a backpack. Number 40. A seasoned pro. Avengers is the third comic book adaptation Chris Evans has been a part of. He's previously acted in the Fantastic Four films, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and The Losers, an adaptation of the DC Comics The Losers. He also voiced Casey Jones in the 2007 animated Ninja Turtles film. Number 41. Mark Ruffalo physically plays the Hulk in the film, unlike the other Hulk films where an actor portrayed Banner, but the Hulk was a CGI recreation. Ruffalo played him using Avatar-inspired motion capture suits and performed all the Hulk's physical actions. They also captured his facial movements and based the Hulk's appearance on Ruffalo's. This is also the first time they've included body hair on the Hulk. Number 42. To create the Hulk's voice, it wasn't all Ruffalo. The actor's voice was blended with those of Lou Ferrigno, who was the original Hulk from the 1970s TV series, and sound designer Chris Boyes. Number 43. Scarlett Johansson trained for weeks in hand-to-hand combat and weapons training with her stunt team to play Black Widow. She also performed some of her own stunts when Whedon would let her. Number 44. Jeremy Renner trained with 8711 stunt team fight coordinators to prepare him for the role as Hawkeye. He wound up working on 4 straight films with them: Mission Impossible 4, Hansel and Gretel, Avengers, and The Bourne Legacy, culminating in 2 years of training. He also trained with Olympic archers. Basically, he's proven himself game and fit for anything. Number 45, Jeremy Renner tore a muscle in his back during filming, shutting down production for days. Number 46, evil from the start. In the comics, Loki is one of the primary and recurring villains that the Avengers face. In fact, he was the villain in the very first issue of the comic book. Number 47, although Renner is left-handed, Clint Barton, Hawkeye, is an ambidextrous archer. Renner is seen shooting right-handed in Thor, and both left-handed and right-handed in this film. Number 48, Whedon initially didn't believe that Loki could provide enough trouble for the group, but the studio rejected his idea to add another foe. He later credited Tom Hiddleston's ability to throw himself into the role and called the actor an amazing mimic. Number 49, the security guard who asks Bruce Banner if he's an alien is played by legendary character actor Harry Dean Stanton, perhaps best known for his role in Alien. The cinematographer was working on a documentary about the actor, Harry Dean Stanton, partly fiction, and suggested his cameo. Thrilled, Whedon actually wrote a 12-page scene for Ruffalo and Stanton, but very little remains in the finished film. But it does include the line, "Are you an alien?" Number 50, early drafts of the script featured Wasp, aka Janet Van Dyne, one of the original comic book Avengers. There was a very waspy draft that I wrote, but it was way too waspy, because I was like, she's adorable, I'm just gonna write her. Whedon thought that he might not be able to get Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow to participate, but he did, and the Wasp draft was out and never to be heard from again. Number 51. When Coulson leaves Stark Towers, he also leaves behind several files for Stark to study, relating to the destruction of Project Pegasus. If you look very closely, you can see that one of the files is slapped with the designation 42. This is a reference to Marvel's infamous hero versus hero comic throwdown, Civil War, which saw Iron Man help develop an extra-dimensional prison for captured bad guys and rebellious heroes called Project 42. The project became necessary because the old housing facility, Project Pegasus, had been destroyed. Number 52. Additional filming was needed for the scene where Nick Fury meets the World Council. Whedon wanted members to appear ominous and big, but the way he filmed them, well, they looked more like weather people. Number 53. The only scene that stayed exactly the same as written in the script is the one with Black Widow being interrogated. Having studied Russian literature and language when he was in school, Whedon said he really enjoyed writing the tied to the chair scene he thought up early in his career and was finally able to put to use. The floor around the chair was padded, so Scarlett and her stunt double, Heidi Moneymaker, could do what they needed. Number 54. The helicarrier on the ocean was actually filmed on a runway in the Albuquerque desert. It was literally too hot to handle, described as so hot that Whedon's sneakers melted on the tarmac. He was quoted as saying, "It was a nightmare. Everyone was baking. The chilly air around us is a tribute to ILM's work." Number 55. Originally, the opening of the Avengers would have Captain America stumble outside and discover that he was on a SHIELD helicarrier floating in the sky over New York City. Whedon decided that it would be more dramatic to do the takeoff from the water. The concept artists had designed the wings of the carrier to flush at the flight deck level, which means you would see them as soon as you see the carrier. Whedon wanted the wings hidden underwater. This proved difficult for concept artists creating it. CA Nathan Schroeder has stated, "We had to come up with some way that the wings could actually move. They kind of climbed up and down the side of the ship. So they start underwater, and if you pay real close attention, they kind of elevate upwards and then lock into final position." If you see the original, when it's in the water, you can see there's a bit of folded pieces where the wing is. And if you look at the underside of the helicarrier, you can see I put in some tracks on the front wings and back wings to suggest that's how it rides up and down. Number 56. The film's second unit shot a chase sequence in Worthington, Pennsylvania, at Creekside Mushroom Ltd, former home to the world-famous Moonlight brand mushrooms. Creekside was the world's largest mushroom growing facility and the only underground mushroom farm in the United States. For the production, shooting at the facility meant gaining access to the 150 miles of tunnels 30 feet below the ground. Prepping the tunnels for the chase sequences without power took months. Now that doesn't sound very fun, guy. You get it because fun and fungi, it's a play on words. It's pretty good. Number 57. With so many fight sequences in the film, many of the actors trained in different fighting styles, including medieval fighting techniques, wushu, kung fu, and Kali. Number 58. Another challenge for the production design team was transforming Cleveland's historic public square into an exterior location that would double for Stuttgart, Germany. The production team changed English words on the buildings to German and added a Biergarten to the square. Local workers in the area loved the changes and hoped that the upgrades, new flowers, plants, picnic tables, and lampposts would stay in place after filming was completed. Sadly, They did. Number 59. In order for special effects to pull off the destruction of New York City, special effects supervisor Dan Sudik rigged up precision pyrotechnics with well-timed car gags so that the assigned stuntmen and women could safely maneuver the explosions and flipping cars. Sudik and his team rigged 28 explosions, which went off in a wave fashion down the street to simulate an air attack. The sequence also included setting up 14 cars down the middle of the street. These vehicles included cannon cars, flipper cars, pyro cars, as well as a semi-truck that exploded. Sudik and his team pulled off the sequence without a hitch. Massive props. Number 60. One of the hardest shots of the film was when Hulk punches Thor. It was captured as one long, continuous shot. For the actual punch, they put Chris Hemsworth in front of a blue screen, standing on top of a real section of a downed Leviathan that they'd built. They attached Hemsworth to a cable that they retimed, so it could look like that he was knocked sideways. They then cut a few frames out of the footage, so it looked like the Hulk's punch has instant impact. Number 61. During the hangar fight sequence between Thor and Hulk, one particularly powerful hammer strike sends the green monster stumbling backwards, crippling a fighter plane used to break his fall. If that plane looks familiar, that's because it's the same one used in James Cameron's True Lies. Whedon claims we got that one for cheap. Number 62. Seeing double? Every single Avenger has a CGI copy. They got tons of high quality scans for every actor, so they could create really high quality digital versions. They also captured every possible facial expression from these actors using the Nova camera system. In some scenes where Black Widow was involved in mostly CGI action, they were able to substitute the CGI version of Black Widow. Number 63, the Chitauri armor was originally going to be a lot more golden. In the early days, the gold armor looked very cool, menacing against the pale skin. But once rendered in CG, it looked way too Vegas? It started to look decorative, says Associate VFX Supervisor Jason Smith. It was altered to look more bronze rather than gold. Ditto with the Leviathan, which the designers called Jumbo internally. He was originally a lot more blinged out, making him appear a lot more fake. They ended up dirtying up the alien a lot more to remove the extreme brightness of the gold. Number 64. The fight scene where Iron Man and Loki have a stare down with their retrospective armies was a nod to spaghetti westerns, especially those starring Clint Eastwood. Whedon actually cut the scene together with the Ennio Morricone's Once Upon a Time in the West theme before replacing it with the Avengers score. Number 65. The big scene where all the Avengers are fighting and the camera pans around, showing each of them fighting different aliens, required some last-minute tweaks. Whedon decided that instead of fighting alone, Captain America should be helping Iron Man. As a result, they cut Captain America out of his original location and put a digital double cap next to Iron Man. Number 66. During the big fight scene at the end of the film, Hawkeye and Black Widow find themselves fighting back to back against an overwhelming number of enemies. Instead of being worried though, they take the time to reminisce about a previous mission in Budapest. Earlier in the film, a clip on a monitor on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier of the pair duking it out with a legion of unseen assailants bears a strong resemblance to their climactic battle. Fans theorize that the clip being played is what the characters are referencing. Number 67. When Thor uses Mjolnir to create a storm cloud, the moment is actually made up of stock footage. They were going to create a huge simulation of the storm over Thor's head, but in the end they wound up buying a stock clip of storm clouds forming a circle. The shot ended up being so brief that it was not worth creating CGI clouds for. Number 68. After Thor takes Loki off the Quinjet down to the mountainside, two ravens fly by as they're talking. In Norse mythology, their father Odin has two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who would bring Odin information from Midgard or Earth. Number 69. After Loki is brought on board the helicarrier, Tony Stark can be spotted wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt. The band Black Sabbath is well known for their song Iron Man. Although the song was not originally associated with the Marvel Comics character, it has since been referenced in the comics, including at the end of Iron Man when Tony Stark quotes the lyrics, "I am Iron Man." Number 70. Before capturing Mark Ruffalo's performance as the Hulk, they had a makeup artist gussy him up, which in a character like the Hulk's case meant adding attachments to Ruffalo's cheeks and brow to make them more Hulk-shaped. They then added what's called a digital prosthetic to enhance those features. Number 71. The original body that they used to create the Hulk's design was that of Long Island bodybuilder Steve Rom. He was painted green and shot with a special camera so you could see every nuance of how his muscles bounce and flex. Two then became one when they put Ruffalo's head on Rom's Hulk body. Number 72. Rom's honest reason for getting into bodybuilding was always his dream to play the Hulk. Rom's grandfather even knew Lou Ferrigno, the original Hulk, from when they were both sheet metal workers in Brooklyn. Small world. Number 73. For the scene where Bruce turns into the Hulk and chases Black Widow on the helicarrier, they first experimented by doing some mocap footage with an athlete in a mocap suit. Joss Whedon claimed that it looked too human and too much like a real sprinter running, so they had to scrap it. Whedon wanted something more flexible and also more out of control. Number 74. When the Hulk is smashing Loki up and down, they inserted Tom Hiddleston's real agonized face. Animation director Mark Chu says, "I had to get behind Tom Hiddleston and shake him violently so they could capture his real expressions." Number 75. According to Chu, they studied simian motions for the Hulk, and when Mark Ruffalo came to the studio to experiment with different motions in the mocap suit, he started to tend to go towards more apish motions, giving him that animalistic quality that gives you the feel that he's not quite in control. Number 76. They also debated how high the Hulk can jump. In the comics, the Hulk can jump for miles, but the makers of the Avengers wanted to keep him more realistic and create the feeling that he had real mass. So they decided that he can jump to the tops of buildings, but not miles and miles away. Number 77. Robert Downey Jr. didn't wear the painful, pinchy suit much during filming. After the first Iron Man film, Downey Jr. saw what could be done with a CGI suit. So when you see the Iron Man suit in the film, it's CGI. There's a partial version called the football suit that he wears in a couple of scenes, such as at the end where he's laying on the ground. Number 78. In one of the most memorable bits of dialogue from the movie, Banner says that he tried to kill himself, but the other guy spat the bullet out. That's actually a reference to a scene that was filmed and then cut from Norton's 2008 film, The Incredible Hulk. The scene can be found on the DVD extras of The Incredible Hulk. Number 79. Robert Downey Jr. kept food hidden all over the lab set. Nobody could find where it was from, so they just let him continue doing it. In the movie, that's his actual food he's offering, and the moments where he was eating was not scripted. Downey Jr. was just hungry and enjoyed keeping his co-stars on their toes. Number 80. Chris Evans was unsure about his line, "I understand that reference." He feared that audiences would think Cap is unintelligent. However, when they watched it in the presence of audiences, he was relieved to see the crowd found it hilarious. Number 81. Although Kobe Smolder's character Maria Hill doesn't do much fighting in the film, she wanted to appear like she was able to. Even though she wasn't offered a trainer for the film, she got her own Black Ops trainer to train her. That's some serious dedication. Number 82. Avengers creator Stan Lee continues his tradition of popping up in small cameos in all of the Marvel films. Well, most of them. You can spot him in the movie as the man in a newsreel talking about superheroes living among us. Number 83. In June 2011, Avengers stuntman Jeremy Fitzgerald injured his head attempting a stunt involving a 30-foot fall from a building after getting hit by an arrow. Sounds like an extremely terrifying, freaky, close call, because it was. But thankfully, he survived. Number 84. In May 2012, Whedon said that it was his decision to include Thanos in a post-credits scene, even though the character is not identified in the film. He said, "He, for me, is the most powerful and fascinating Marvel villain." Number 85. Originally, when Iron Man awakes from falling from the sky, he was going to say, "What's next?" Robert Downey Jr. thought it could be more interesting, so he improvised a line about going to a shawarma restaurant. Exactly one day after the film would premiere, an additional coda involving the Avengers eating shawarma was shot and placed at the very end of the credits. Number 86. The result? Shawarma sales reportedly skyrocketed in Los Angeles, St. Louis, and Boston in the days following the film's release. Number 87. Disney and Sony Pictures agreed for Oscorp Towers from The Amazing Spider-Man to be included in the film, but the idea was dropped because too much of the skyline had already been completed. Number 88. A little music to Captain America fan ears in November 2011, because Marvel announced that Alan Silvestri, who scored Captain America the First Avenger, would write and compose the score for the Avengers. Number 89. Silvestri developed the score with the London Symphony Orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in London, England. Number 90. Abbey Road has a rich musical history, known for being the studio that many classic Beatles and Pink Floyd albums were recorded. The score for The Empire Strikes Back was also recorded there. Number 91. July 2011. A teaser trailer that was meant to be a post-credits scene for Captain America the First Avenger was briefly leaked online. Entertainment Weekly speculated that it came from a preview screening and described the footage as shaky, fuzzy, flickering, and obviously filmed on a cell phone. Number 92. With so many eager, loyal fans, the Avengers script was under tight security and often referred to by the codename Group Hug. Number 93. But they could only keep it under wraps for so long. At one point, the film's script was stolen and leaked online. The reported source? Ironically, none other than head of S.H.I.E.L.D. himself, Samuel L. Jackson. He'd used a printer in Canada, and a digital copy of the script was left behind. Number 94. The cast was close off screen. The famous battle cry in the comic book, Avengers Assemble, is a call to arms for members of the team to fight the foes that no single superhero can withstand. During production, Chris Evans would send out text messages to the cast to come together for a night on the town in Albuquerque after a long, hard week of work. Evans would text, "Assemble." Number 95, one of the final scenes shot with the Avengers, the one of the very few shot in actual New York City, was the scene in Central Park at the Bethesda Fountain. It was shot on the Labor Day weekend, resulting in thousands of onlookers and lots of paparazzi gathered around to watch filming and causing quite the stir. Number 96, The Avengers was released on May 4th, 2012, and instantly broke the record for the biggest opening weekend ever, grossing over $207 million. The previous record was held by Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Number 97, sadly, The Avengers did not hold the record for too long. It was broken 3 years later by Jurassic World, which was then again broken by Star Wars The Force Awakens. Number 98, The Avengers broke several box office records on its way to grossing $623.4 million in North America and $895.2 million in other countries, for a worldwide total of $1.518 billion. It became the first Marvel film to make $1 billion. Number 99, The Avengers is officially the highest grossing superhero movie of all time. Number 100, the film opened to favorable reviews, with critics praising Whedon's direction, storytelling, and the cast performances, especially Mark Ruffalo's take on Bruce Banner / the Hulk. It's got a 92% approval rating. The website's consensus reads, "Thanks to a script that emphasizes its hero's humanity and a wealth of superpowered set pieces, The Avengers lives up to the hype and raises the bar for Marvel at the movies." Number 101, though The Avengers was nominated for the Oscar and BAFTA awards for Best Visual Effects, it lost both to Ang Lee's Life of Pi. Number 102, the film won big at the Saturn Awards, taking home awards for 4 out of its 6 nominations, including Best Sci-Fi Film of the Year. Number 103, naturally, a sequel was planned for release in 2015, with The Avengers set to return. It would also include the characters of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Vision, and mega-villain Megatron. Ultron. Number 104, with Bettany joining the cast as Vision, he actually has 2 separate roles in the franchise. Also credited for voicing Jarvis, Tony Stark's AI butler. Number 105, between the 2 Avengers films, Marvel released Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. All were box office hits, and Iron Man 3 had a cameo from Bruce Banner in a post-credits scene. Thor: The Dark World has a Captain America cameo when Loki transforms into him to taunt Thor. Number 106, when released on DVD and digital outlets in September 2012, the film once again broke records, topping the Nielsen Video Scan First Alert chart, which tracks overall disc sales, as well as the dedicated Blu-ray disc sales chart, with 72% of unit sales coming from Blu-ray, a record for a new release, in which both the DVD and Blu-ray formats were released simultaneously. Finally, number 107. According to director Joss Whedon, the original cut of the movie was over 3 hours long. About 30 minutes of the exercised footage were included on the Blu-ray, most of which revolve around Steve Rogers, Captain America, struggling to adjust to the modern world. Chris Evans announced that those deleted scenes would be used in Captain America.
It's hard to believe with the release of Avengers Infinity War that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has nearly completed Phase 3. The future for the Avengers might be uncertain, but their previous adventures remained frozen in time, like Captain America throughout most of the 20th century. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. Avengers Age of Ultron released in May 2015. It acts as a sequel to 2012's The Avengers and is the 11th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Joss Whedon wrote and directed the film. He's primarily known for writing and heading the previous Marvel blockbuster The Avengers, among many other great cultural touchstones that he played a significant role in creating, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and his work on the Astonishing X-Men. The second Avengers was named after the 2013 Marvel comic crossover storyline Age of Ultron. However, Kevin Feige, one of the main producers for the MCU, explained that the particular comic in question wasn't the source for the movie's primary storyline. Feige revealed that the crew came up with a few titles that included the words of Ultron, but Age of Ultron suited the overall attitude better than most of the other ones did. So they borrowed the title but took storylines from decades of Avengers adventures. An early script set the premise that Ultron was created by the government to eliminate the need for Avengers. Ultron was meant to turn on its creators, resulting in the Avengers teaming up once more to stop him. That draft, you can imagine, was changed significantly. Viewers don't necessarily have to see the first Avengers to enjoy the sequel. In fact, Whedon took some notes from The Godfather Part 2. It was a classic known for its ability to stand out as a very different movie compared to its predecessor. We also owe the movie's high potential to its stellar cast, and that came with its fair share of preparation. It took Joss Whedon a year to convince Aaron Taylor Johnson to play the character of Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. Initially, Taylor Johnson expressed worry for the length of Marvel contracts and the time constraints they would put on future projects. Fortunately, Taylor Johnson ultimately signed on when he heard Elizabeth Olsen, his castmate in 2014's Godzilla, would join him for most of the film. This power duo is what we call in the business world a work marriage. However, this speed bump was only the beginning of a long battle to have Quicksilver appear in Age of Ultron. The character had previously appeared in X-Men Days of Future Past, and he was a possible character for both X-Men The Last Stand and Avengers Assemble. Legal complexities over the license to the role resulted in the hero's omission in both films. Eventually, both Marvel and Fox Studios announced a resolution in regards to the licensing of the character. The result came to Quicksilver appearing in Age of Ultron as well as the X-Men sequel, though under specific parameters. There would be no allusion to his relations with the X-Men or Magneto in any Avengers film, and there would be no reference to Quicksilver's membership in the Avengers in any X-Men film. Also, the word mutant, it wouldn't drop in any Marvel film. Not on Fox's watch. It didn't end there, though. The day after Fox announced Evan Peters as Quicksilver for the X-Men franchise, Marvel and Fox entered the legal boxing ring yet again over specific rights for the character. This conflict included the issue of whether Peters would be allowed to portray Quicksilver in any other film outside the X-Men franchise. The battle necessitated a different actor to play Quicksilver in any Marvel film. So, no Peter, sorry bud, you aren't invited to eat shawarma with RDJ or Scarlett Johansson. While the role of Wanda Maximoff, also known as Scarlet Witch, ultimately went to Elizabeth Olsen, other actresses considered for the position included Lindsay Lohan, Saoirse Ronan, Sasha Pierza, and Mila Kunis. Emily Blunt and Ruth Wilson were both considered for the role of Carol Danvers, aka the Magnificent Ms. Marvel, for Avengers Age of Ultron. This idea got scrapped when Marvel Studios announced that Ms. Marvel would have a solo film for herself premiering in 2019. The Marvel Ultimates comic is known for featuring a controversial, incestuous storyline between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. According to Elizabeth Olsen, while this particular aspect would not be overtly present in the film, she and Aaron Taylor Johnson, quote, played around with certain parts of that fictional relationship. It's not too far-fetched. The two played loving spouses in the modern remake of Godzilla. Thanos was allegedly supposed to be the next villain for the Avengers to face off with, as hinted by the post-credits scene in the first film. Fortunately, this character was put off for another movie because Joss Whedon opted for a more grounded villain, someone or something meant to show the parallels of evil for the real world. The original Avengers team features 6 heroes. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark relies on his technology, money, and brilliant mind to stand equal with superpowered beings and gods. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, is portrayed by Chris Evans. He begins as a frail man, but after being injected with the super soldier serum, he gained immense strength and helped defeat the terrorist organization Hydra during World War II. The Captain froze in ice from the 40s until the present day, which means he's technically several decades older than his appearance and abilities would indicate. Cap is still adjusting to his new circumstances, but his timeless sense of right and wrong help guide the Avengers through difficult moral dilemmas. Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, is played by Mark Ruffalo, who assumed the role in the first Avengers film. Edward Norton had played the character in his previous solo film. Bruce Banner is a brilliant but sensitive scientist. As a result of a lab accident, when he gets angry, he can transform into a gigantic beast known as the Hulk. Thor, the Norse god of thunder, is played by Chris Hemsworth. He's initially from the planet Asgard. Thor is on Earth to keep the peace, mainly from his disruptive brother Loki, who was the villain in the first Avengers film. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is played by Scarlett Johansson. She's a human spy who's plagued with doubts about her morals. She's introduced as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, but has since closely associated with the Avengers team. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, is played by Jeremy Renner. He too is a regular human. His only superpower is being a skilled archer. In the first Avengers film, Hawkeye spent most of the story as an unwilling accomplice to the bad guys as his mind became possessed by Loki. In Age of Ultron, we learn that Barton decided to retire and live with his family on a quiet farm. That original team of 6 expanded in Age of Ultron to include a few new faces, most of which exist in previous films. Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, made his Marvel debut in the second Captain America solo film, The Winter Soldier. James Rhodey Rhodes, aka War Machine, is played by Don Cheadle. The character first appeared in the original Iron Man film, though Terrence Howard played him then. Cheadle assumed the role in Iron Man 2 and has maintained it ever since. The original idea for the Avengers sequel was to make a film smaller in scope, with more of a focus on the characters' relationships. The hope was that this would build intimacy, which would make the film seem organic and avoid rehashing the first Avengers. Both Joss Whedon and Marvel president Kevin Feige spoke to these intentions during the development process between the first and second Avengers movies. On another note, the Abomination, the villain from 2008's Incredible Hulk standalone film, was going to be an antagonist in this film, or at least a secondary villain. Ultimately, the character was written out, and Tim Roth was unable to reprise his role as the horrifying creature. Avengers Age of Ultron was originally planned to be Robert Downey Jr.'s last appearance as Tony Stark, but that theory died when Downey signed on for Captain America Civil War in 2016. 3 stunt doubles were hired to take on Scarlett Johansson's more challenging scenes due to her pregnancy, leading to a lot of confusion and hilarity on set. Embarrassingly, Chris Evans even admitted to saying hello and starting a conversation with one of them, only to discover that the person he was talking to was not Scarlett Johansson. Evidently, finding the right actor to play Ultron was a no-brainer, as Whedon proclaimed that James Spader was his first and only choice when it came to casting the character. The reason? Spader had that hypnotic voice, which was, quote, eerily calm and compelling while also being very human and humorous. In fact, on James Spader's first day on set, the cast was so impressed by his performance that they applauded him after his first take. Because Ultron was 8 to 9 feet tall, the 5', 10-inch James Spader had to wear an antenna-like contraption made of a thick piece of wire with 2 red balls attached to the top. This prop went up against his entire back and 3 feet above his head. This whole setup existed solely for the actors who would share scenes with him. After all, they needed a reference point for where the robot's eyes would be, which were, you guessed it, those 2 red balls. Elizabeth Olsen admitted to the costume being sort of a distraction on set. The story goes that Spader would be giving an intense performance, and out of instinct, Olsen would look at the actor rather than the balls representing his eyes. Much to everybody's amusement, whenever this happened, Aaron Taylor Johnson would yell, "Red balls! Look at his balls, Lizzie!" to get her to look back in the right direction. Taylor Johnson had to go through his share of changes just as his character Quicksilver hopped through some customary adjustments. For starters, producers thought Johnson was too bulky and robust to portray a runner, and he was asked to lose some muscle mass. For his running scenes, Taylor Johnson was filmed with a high-speed camera and then shot a second time running at normal speed against a green screen. The 2 images were then spliced together during editing to give the illusion of a slimmer figure. Alexandra Byrne, the veteran costume designer for Age of Ultron, was tasked with dressing the superheroes for a pivotal party scene at the beginning of the film. Since it was the first time that Thor ever sported party clothes, Byrne worked closely with Chris Hemsworth to find the correct combination of jeans, jacket, and shirt that would fit his shape but not look too themed or showy on camera. Robert Downey Jr. wanted a very sophisticated look, as he always does. Subsequently, he was off to London's famous Savile Row for tailoring. After 5 fittings, Tony Stark emerged looking, well, absolutely fabulous. Many of the Avengers got upgrades in their gear, thanks to the Tony Stark and Bruce Banner duo. Hawkeye not only played a more significant role in the sequel, but he also got a new uniform. The new look blended elements from his original Marvel Comics outfit, his Ultimate Marvel outfit, and his Ronin costume. Might be weird to hear, but Hulk almost rocked his gray look as he first appeared in The Incredible Hulk #1, 1962. Back in the day, it was hard for colorist Stan Goldberg to keep the shade of gray consistent, so Stan Lee changed him to green. Writer Peter David later revisited the idea of the Grey Hulk in issue number 302 in 1984, with Bruce Banner developing associative identity disorder. The different colored Hulks represented different personalities that the character battled. Grey Hulk appeared more crafty and devious, but Green Hulk was stronger and more dominant. While this concept loomed over Age of Ultron, it never made it into the final product. One of the scenes in which the Grey Hulk would be prominent was the big fight between Iron Man and the Hulk. The effects team at Industrial Light and Magic initially planned to feature a gray-colored Hulk instead of green. However, ILM just changed his eyes to make them look more sullen when under the control of Scarlet Witch. The original Incredible Hulk television series star Lou Ferrigno reprised his beastly role as the voice of the Hulk for Age of Ultron. It wasn't his first time returning though. Ferrigno had previously played the role via compositing with other sounds in the film, from 2008's The Incredible Hulk to 2012's The Avengers. Brian Tyler, the composer for the film, stated that the musical score acted as an homage to the works of legendary composer John Williams. He specifically noted that the musical cues drew from Superman, the original Star Wars trilogy, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Danny Elfman, another composer and also the lead singer and songwriter for the band Oingo Boingo, also contributed music to the score, using Alan Silvestri's theme from the first film to create a hybrid tune. In the teaser trailer, an eerie rendition of I've Got No Strings was heard and recognized by audiences in every nook and cranny of the world. Originally from Disney's Pinocchio, the song refers to Ultron being free from his master, Tony Stark. Luckily, because Marvel Studios' parent company is Disney, the studio didn't have to pay any royalties for using the song. Just to clear up some confusion, Dr. Hank Pym, aka the Ant-Man, created Ultron in the comics. In this Avengers sequel, Ultron is a dormant project originally developed by Tony Stark. To To keep production top secret, the working title for the film was After Party. And the production was intense. ILM had to develop a whole new motion capture system for the film called Muse to better capture the actors' facial and body movements to combine different takes of the same performance. This technology was mostly created with Ultron and the Hulk in mind. An extraordinary asset to the production in Seoul was utilizing drones and remote control cars to place cameras in places that never could have been achieved by camera operators or helicopters. The production enlisted the expertise of brothers Men Stru Pa, a Korean national champion in drone flying, and Pak Min Koo, the Korean national champion in remote car racing. The scene in which Ultron instructs his drones to drive and then latch themselves onto the truck in Seoul took almost a full year to complete, 360 days to be exact, which is 6 days shy of a leap year. Only one animator worked on this particular shot, and upon completion, he received a party and a bottle of champagne for his efforts. Production designer Charles Wood built a ginormous new Avengers Tower set for Age of Ultron, thus creating the most expensive set ever assembled for a Marvel film at the time. Much of the movie takes place in that very Avengers Tower and on its many different levels. A vast expanse of glass was created to show an iconic view of New York City. The multiple environments were structured and connected to the film's production, designed to have the ability to move from floor to floor with incredible ease. While the film was mostly shot at Shepperton Studios in Surrey, England, additional footage was filmed in Italy, South Korea, Bangladesh, New York City, and various locations around England. With more than 3,000 visual effects shots, Avengers Age of Ultron featured the most VFX shots of any Marvel movie upon its release, topping the previous record holder Guardians of the Galaxy, which had 2,750 VFX shots. Cinematographer Ben Davis, who also worked with Marvel on Guardians of the Galaxy, shot the film with a central unit of 3 ARRI Alexa cameras. Davis explained that although the Alexa was Marvel's preferred camera, it wasn't necessarily a standard. The only non-negotiable requirement was that the film had to be shot in digital. Davis also utilized Blackmagic Design's pocket cinema cameras to meet the needs of the second unit kit. The second unit typically requires a fleet of smaller cameras that are less expensive and rugged enough to handle numerous trials by fire. In regards to the camera system, Whedon stated that Ultron was shot very differently from the first film, utilizing lots of long lenses. The method was that he aimed to shoot the film almost like a documentary. Before shooting began, Davis sat down and planned out Age of Ultron's lighting using a pen, paper, and a floor plan of the set. He said that on a production of the film's scale, he had to be sure that all the lighting was just right even before filming began. We'll get deeper into the subject later, but it's a known fact by many that Joss Whedon wanted to lengthen Thor's poolside visions, and those scenes in general. However, executives issued an ultimatum stating that if they were extended, it would be in the place of Hawkeye's farm scenes. Whedon chose to keep the farm scenes. This film marks the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Thor appears in a film without Loki. Tom Hiddleston did film a scene reprising Loki, but it was ultimately cut from the final version as Joss Whedon felt it didn't play well with the rest of the film as a whole. Each Avenger except for Black Widow tries to lift Thor's hammer and naturally fails. Ironically, in the comics, Black Widow was deemed worthy to wield it in an alternate reality storyline, specifically Natasha Romanoff of Earth 23223. In the comics, not many characters have been deemed worthy of lifting Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Captain America stands as one of the few worthy members. In the film, he was even seen to be nudging it just a little bit, to Thor's dismay. As we all know, there are a lot of differences between what goes down in the cinematic universe and the infinite supply of Marvel comics. There's one in particular worth mentioning, however. In the comics, the gem on Vision's forehead is the Solar Jewel, allowing Vision to absorb ambient energy for power and also emitting a beam for defense. In Age of Ultron, this gem was changed to the Mind Stone, which is one of the stones fated to be placed on the Infinity Gauntlet. When Tony Stark tries to lift Thor's hammer, he jokes by saying, "I'm reinstituting Prima Noctis." Prima Noctis was allegedly a law in late medieval Europe by which a feudal lord could claim the first night, implying the night after the wedding, with any bride in his dominion to have sexual relations with her. This practice was depicted in Braveheart. Tony provided Black Widow with some newly powered fighting batons based on eskrima sticks, a weapon typically used in Filipino martial arts, and famously by the DC superhero Nightwing. Hawkeye also received an upgrade to his weaponry with many new arrow tips to serve a variety of purposes. Hawkeye's quiver also changed, becoming more automated and faster loading, and capable of holding, wait for it, 9 whole arrows. When Tony Stark goes to upload his new AI partner, Friday, it's a reference to the film His Girl Friday, which Joss Whedon often lists as one of his primary influences on writing strong female characters. There is another drive labeled Jocasta. In the comics, Jocasta was an AI created by Ultron. Her mind and body became modeled after Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. She would eventually turn against Ultron and join the Avengers. Veronica, Bruce Banner's creation that houses the extra Hulkbuster parts, is a nod to the Riverdale Rascals from the Archie comics. In the comics, Archie Andrews is a high schooler who's torn between two women that love him, Betty and Veronica. Banner already had a girlfriend, Betty Ross, so this armor was named Veronica to show the other side of Banner's personality, the Hulk. When Scarlet Witch tries to mind control Hawkeye, he neutralizes her and quips, "I tried the mind control thing. Not a fan." This scene is a reference to Jeremy Renner being openly displeased with his character being mind controlled by Loki during most of the first Avengers film in 2012. Ultron is seen wearing a red cloak during part of the film. In his first appearance in the comics, Avengers number 54, released in 1968, he wore one throughout the issue under the alias known as the Crimson Cowl. The Mark XLV Iron Man used in the final battle is inspired by the Heroic Age armor seen in the Marvel Comics. Age of Ultron features the debut of Stan Lee reciting his famous catchphrase, "Excelsior," for the first time in a film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Stan also plays a World War II veteran who drinks Thor's 1,000-year-old Asgardian alcohol. While the liquor is fictional, Stan did serve in the army during World War II. At age 20, he joined in 1942 and got assigned to the Signal Corps. He repaired telegraph poles and other communications equipment, before transferring to the training film division where he wrote manuals, film scripts, and even did some cartooning. During the Hulk vs. Iron Man fight, Hulk gets tossed at a truck that says Crawford. In the comics, Bruce Banner's mentor, Dr. Jeffrey Crawford, becomes his enemy called Ravage, who first appears in Rampaging Hulk number 2 from 1998. Easter egg, or just a generic truck company? You decide! During the scene where Tony Stark witnesses the future, he sees the Avengers dead and Captain America's shield shattered. It's only been broken a few times before in the comics, but it could be a reference to the Infinity Gauntlet, a 6-issue series published in 1991 where Thanos murders all the superheroes. One of the last is Captain America, whose shield gets destroyed. The subplot in the movie where Thor tries to learn more about his futuristic vision by visiting a mystical well refers to the Well of the Weird, which first appeared in Thor Annual 11 in 1983. It's no secret that producer Kevin Feige is a huge Star Wars fan, which makes it as no surprise that every Marvel Phase 2 film has a reference to the second Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. The scene in question is Luke getting his hand sliced off by his father, Darth Vader. The second Avengers continues the tradition when Ultron severs Ulysses Claw's arm. New York City's Grand Central Station statue transportation, designed by French sculptor Jules-Philippe Coton, met its demise when it was crashed into by a Chitauri Leviathan during the first Avengers film. Age of Ultron reveals Grand Central statue to be newly constructed, depicting a tribute to the first responders who came to the city's aid after the first attack. Unlike in the comics where her son Amadeus plays the pivotal role of scientific discovery, Helen Cho took to the spotlight in the film, both for her advances in human healing as well as the melding of human tissue with artificial intelligence. While Amadeus was known for devoting his powers to the side of Marvel's greatest heroes, his presence in the MCU seems like a long shot for now. During Captain America's vision of reuniting with Peggy Carter, the band supplying the music in the background can be seen for a split second, revealing them to be the Roy Thomas Players. This scene is a reference to comic writer Roy Thomas, who co-created and updated several heroes and villains, most of whom have been featured in the MCU. His roster includes everything from Ultron and Vision to Yellow Jacket and Adam Warlock. Both Marvel producer Kevin Feige and director Joss Whedon let fans know ahead of time that there is no post-credit scene at the end of Age of Ultron. There is a mid-credit scene, but as Whedon told Entertainment Weekly, they wanted people to know beforehand, so they didn't sit in the theater for an extra 10 minutes. Raise your hands, who missed the memo and did that anyways? You may have seen War Machine in TV commercials and trailers, but where's Pepper Potts? Age of Ultron is the first film where Stark appears without Pepper Potts. Both he and Thor have a humorous exchange in the movie, explaining why their lady loves are missing in action. Throughout the film and in the trailers released for the movie, Ultron compares himself to Pinocchio. Coincidentally, his creator, Robert Downey Jr., is playing the role of Geppetto in an upcoming reboot of Pinocchio. So the villain wasn't actually that far off from the truth. Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth stated on separate occasions that Joss Whedon had not told them the plot of the sequel, with Evans claiming that he didn't even know the title of the film until the official announcement at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. Additionally, Hemsworth and Kobe Smulders, who plays Maria Hill in the film, both admitted to not knowing exactly who Ultron was on separate occasions. According to the DVD commentary for Age of Ultron, Robert Downey Jr. improvised his "Hello Dear" line when working on the tractor. Whedon enjoyed the line so much that he admitted to kicking himself for not having thought of it. The Hulk was initially supposed to fly off in the Quinjet into space, but this idea got put on hold because Marvel didn't want people to think they were setting up a Planet Hulk film. They can't fool us though. Hulk did eventually end up in outer space. Former Ant-Man director Edgar Wright wrote an after-credits scene for the movie, but the final product didn't make it to the the cut due to his ambitious plans for the Ant-Man universe. As with any film, there were various designs for the characters finished by concept artists. These included a more comic-accurate take on Ultron with his trademark jack-o'-lantern face, as well as an alternate Quicksilver outfit that included a green shirt with a white lightning bolt as a nod to his original costume. Chris Hemsworth was unhappy with Thor's role in the movie, saying it was boring to play. He recalls telling Kevin Feige, "I feel like I'm dying here. I feel like I have handcuffs on," which is what ultimately led to the character adopting a more comedic yet still arrogant personality in Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War. Andy Serkis was initially brought in just as a motion capture consultant to help Mark Ruffalo and James Spader. However, Jeremy Latcham then stumbled upon some online fan art of Serkis as the Black Panther villain, Claw, and Joss Whedon liked it so much that he decided to cast Serkis as Claw in the movie. Hawkeye and his wife named their new baby boy after Black Widow and Quicksilver. His name is Nathaniel for Natasha, Pietro after Quicksilver, Barton. Actor Aaron Himmelstein, who played a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent intimidated by Rumlau in Captain America Winter Soldier, returns as one of the new agents on Fury's helicarrier. The New Avengers facility is a reference to the New Avengers comic, which initially featured a team of both old and new heroes, just like at the end of the movie. Deadline Hollywood calculated the net profit of the film to be $382.32 million. When factoring together production budgets, P&A, talent participations, and other costs, with box office grosses and ancillary revenues from VOD to DVD to TV, the film placed 4th on their list of 2015's most valuable blockbusters. Everyone's their own worst critic. In May of 2015, Whedon was very upfront with the press about his clashes with Marvel over scenes he wanted to keep, from Hawkeye visiting his family at the farmhouse to the Avengers' dream sequences. He was also not happy for Marvel being so adamant about keeping a Thor and Eric cave scene in the final picture. Whedon later apologized for his harsh comments, but hey, every artist has their day. Whedon also took the mixed critical response to Ultron very personally, revealing that Ultron was the most complicated response he'd ever gotten. His way of coping allegedly involved going into the fetal position for about 8 months. Whedon was not happy with his work on the film and refused to return to direct future Avengers movies, although the cast, especially Mark Ruffalo, lobbied for his creative direction. To conclude, Whedon was so exhausted after working with the sequel that he decided not to direct the 2-part Avengers Infinity War sequels. That job instead went to MCU's newest dynamic directorial duo, the Russo brothers, who gained acclaim for their work on TV shows like Community and Arrested Development. You may also know the pair from their MCU directorial work like Captain America Civil War and The Winter Soldier. Every movie has its fair share of controversies. About 200 small-town German movie theaters decided to boycott the film after Disney demanded 53% of ticket sales, without taking into account the sizes of small-town venues. Traditionally, a studio film takes about 47.7% of the opening weekend box office. Disney has also cut the money it would usually contribute towards advertising and advances for 3D glasses. Not a great look, Disney. The film received mixed reviews upon release in China due to poor translations. The translations were said to be too literal, with some Chinese critics assuming the work was merely run through Google Translate. But don't think that made a dent in the film's performance. Avengers Age of Ultron grossed $429,894,783 domestically, and $1,322,833,715 in worldwide sales. At the time of its release, Avengers Age of Ultron had the second most significant US opening ever, but still fell short of the first Avengers film. As of 2018, both mega blockbusters bow to the reigning success of Marvel's top cat, Black Panther. According to a small portion of analysts, the opening weekend box office gross was lower than expected because of the weekend's featured boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. On October 2014, Marvel announced a 2-part sequel to Avengers Age of Ultron, titled Avengers Infinity War. Part 1 was scheduled to be released on May 4th, 2018, with Part 2 scheduled for May 3rd, 2019. Of course, the date for Part 1 got bumped up to April 27th, and Part 2 later lost its Part 2 subtitle, being renamed simply Avengers 4. The subtitle will be announced at a later date once Infinity War has had time to set in. There was an idea to bring together a group of 107 facts. But for the biggest cinematic event in all of time and space, Avengers Infinity War has managed to keep a surprising amount of information hidden under its gauntlet-covered thumb. So to board the hype train without ruining the movie, we've got 107 spoiler-free facts about Avengers Infinity War that you should know. Avengers Infinity War was directed by the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony. They're taking the helm from previous franchise captain Joss Whedon. While this is their first Avengers film, they directed Winter Soldier and Civil War, so they're pretty well versed in this whole Marvel game. Just as the Russos' previous Marvel films were high-concept genre pieces, so too is Infinity War. To capture the smash-and-grab urgency of the movie, the brothers channeled 90s heist films. They actually watched some 90s heist movies to get the vibe, too. 2 Days in the Valley and Out of Sight inspired the tone of Infinity War. Of course they drew influence from the comics, too. The 1991 Infinity Gauntlet and the 2013 Infinity titles were the biggest basis for the movie. But don't expect to see the film playing out in exactly the same way. In the original Infinity Gauntlet story, Silver Surfer comes crashing into the Sanctum Sanctorum to warn Doctor Strange of Thanos' arrival. Judging by the trailers, it looks like the Hulk will be standing in for the Surfer. Marvel didn't even own some of the comic characters who were part of the original storyline. Since word came out that Disney had reacquired the rights to Silver Surfer, though, rumors circulated that he would be popping up. The Russo brothers shot that down, but hinted that his appearance may be possible one day. If the Russos could only have one mutant, then it would of course be Wolverine. Hashtag bring back Jackman. The Russos are really stressing that Infinity War is the beginning of the end. They've called it the conclusion of the book that began with Iron Man back in 2008. It's like one long graphic novel that we've only got a few chapters left in. Directors assemble! The Russos worked closely with the other MCU directors to make sure that all their movies linked up. In particular, Taika Waititi, who was wrapping up Thor Ragnarok, and Peyton Reed, who is following up Infinity War with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Don't worry though, this movie will be nothing like anything you've seen before. According to Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., they're not retreading any of the same old MCU ground. Even the airport sequence from Civil War, which fans loved, will be a far cry from the type of action this movie brings. RDJ calls it the anti-process. Finding what works and then not doing it. The movie's plot was kept so secret that even the actors were in the dark. They were given partial shooting scripts with fake endings and only learned what was happening via verbal explanation on the shooting day. Tom Holland asked to read the full script, but producers specifically shot him down. Then again, Holland was notorious for slipping spoilers, so the role was probably made for him. Of the cast members, Benedict Cumberbatch read the most of the script. This, he claims, is because he's slow and needed the extra help to do his part, but we all know he was probably using his inner Sherlock to game the system. Because the Russos have managed to keep so much of the movie a secret thus far, they've asked that early viewers do the same, using the hashtag Thanos demands your silence. Don't ever use that hashtag unless you're already ready for some spoilers. Actors from the set of The Last Jedi commented that their movie always felt like an indie, despite being Star Wars. Not so with Infinity War. Many of the actors have commented that they were constantly aware of the scope of what they were doing. We know that this movie is slated to feature, well, pretty much every MCU hero of all time. The biggest assembly will see 32 main characters coming together. How do they even fit on screen? Wait, we can actually answer that rhetorical question. The movie is shot entirely in IMAX, which means the screen is 26% bigger than that of other standard movies, which means 26% better, obviously. That's just another way Infinity War is making film history. It is the first ever movie to be shot completely in IMAX. Not only is the movie in IMAX, but IMAX is in the movie's poster. Seriously, the IMAX logo is hidden in the poster 4 times. Some fans claim that they've spotted Ant-Man in there too. Honestly, there's so many characters on the poster, they could have hidden Waldo in there and I wouldn't have noticed. Since the cast is so large, the Russos realized that the only way to do them all justice was to break them down into smaller groups. They took this hint from the movie Nashville, which also sees different pairings of people woven into a bigger storyline. The daunting task of screenwriting this was given to frequent Marvel writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They wrote the first Avenger in the Dark World. No, wait, it's okay. They also wrote Civil War and Winter Soldier, so we're in pretty good hands. Given the character count, even a common dialogue sequence becomes complex from a directing standpoint. According to Joe Russo, every single character is important and needs to shine. It adds even more pressure to balancing the scene. Joe Russo has a term for exciting chemistry between two characters who are meeting for the first time. He calls it strange alchemy, and the movie is filled with those little interactions. Even behind the scenes, people were freaking out about their favorite characters meeting. In particular, the opportunity to get the Guardians and the Avengers together at last was a big sell. In case you weren't worried about your heroes facing imminent doom, heed the warning of the Russo brothers. They've said that everything has to end to have values, and that calls for stakes. So have your Kleenex IMAX ready. The movie was just as bittersweet for the actors as it is for the viewers. Many of the actors who have known each other for years knew this would likely be the last time they all work together. Besides all that, there is the matter of concluding contracts. In the coming movies, the deals that MCU struck with grandparents Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, RDJ, ScarJo, Chris Hemsworth, and Jeremy Renner are set to run out. Don't expect any recasts either. At least in Downey's case, the Russos have said that no one would be able to take over the role, whether Downey does decide to retire the Iron Suit or not. So who's to blame for all my anxiety? The mean grimace himself, Thanos. He isn't just stealing the Infinity Stones, he's stealing the show too. The Russos have pinned him as the main character of this movie. The biggest cinematic baddie of all time is Darth Vader. With this movie, the Russos hope to make Thanos into a Vader for a new generation. In other words, be very afraid. Infinity War won't be covering Thanos' origin story. You'll have to go to the extended Marvel Cinematic Universe for that. The novel, Titan Consumed, will give you all the backstory you need to fear the Purple People Eater. Thanos was created by Jim Starlin, who actually cut ties with Marvel just last year due to a Thanos-related dispute. To be fair, Starlin didn't even know Thanos was going to appear in the MCU until a few weeks before the Avengers came out. He learned via leaks and rumors, just like the rest of us. Starlin has not so subtly alluded that he'd like a cameo in the movie since it's based on his work. So keep your eyes open for him, maybe he'll show up in there. He first came up with Thanos while taking a psych class. It was based on the Thanos Eros concepts, also known as the life and death instincts. Not sure how that made him think of a giant world-consuming grimace, but whatever, dude, I'm no psychologist. Thanos' design was largely inspired by the work of Jack Kirby. Largely, as in Thanos used to be this thin dude, and Starlin beefed him up to look more like Kirby's DC Goliath, Darkseid. Thanos' first official comic appearance dates back to Iron Man number 55 in 1973. He popped up after that in various other Marvel comics, just like the MCU. As for his movie design, his armorless summer look is reminiscent of the humble robed outfit he sported in the comics. It also resembles his original sleeveless style from his first appearance. The teaser shot of Thanos lifting the Infinity Gauntlet is just like the iconic cover of the graphic novel of the same name. In the trailer, Gamora comments that Thanos can wipe out half the universe with the snap of his fingers. She's being literal there. Thanos' snap is actually a defining moment of the comics, wherein he actually does succeed in cutting down the population. Josh Brolin was cast as Thanos for Guardians of the Galaxy. Since the MCU producers knew this role was going to eventually be huge, they sent over a Hulk ton of research. Brolin had been working on the movie Everest at the time and spent more time reading comics than researching The Climb. At first, Brolin has said he felt more like a prop than a person in his role. The mocap suit he had to wear was so alien to him, no pun intended, that he had no idea how it would turn out. When he saw the footage and how his actions translated so seamlessly, he realized that he never should have doubted it. You may accidentally find yourself empathizing with Thanos as you watch Infinity War. This wasn't the intention though. It wasn't until the movie was nearly done that the Russos came to Josh Brolin and admitted they had developed feelings for the Mad Titan. Brolin has likened Thanos to his role as Dan White in the 2009 biopic, Milk. Both are well-intentioned figures who become murderous when no one will hear them out. Thanos isn't Josh Brolin's only Marvel role this year. He's also Cable in Deadpool 2, which drops less than a month after Infinity War, and you know there's no way they're not going to make fun of that in that movie. Due to his Cable commitments, Brolin was absent throughout most of the production. He was often replaced by a stand-in actor who led the characters through their scenes. Ironically, in the comics, Thanos and Deadpool were competitors. Both were vying for the heart of Mistress Death. Maybe we'll see this plotline on the big screen one day if the late-stage meta-narrative of the MCU gets really insane. Thanos is joined by his league of cronies, the Black Order, though in the MCU they're called the Children of Thanos. This includes Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, and Cull Obsidian. Nebula, Gamora, you've been replaced by kids with eviler names. Okay, wait, so if Thanos is working with these children, what did he mean by the whole I'll do it myself thing at the end of Age of Ultron? Turns out the Infinity War writers don't know either. They have no idea where he was, what he meant, why he said it. Just commenting, not our movie. For the chosen few who have seen Infinity War, Ebony Maw is an early favorite. Played by Tom Von Lawler, he has exactly the kind of captivating personality that the Russos wanted the children to carry. Cull Obsidian is portrayed by Terry Notary. Notary is best known for playing mocap apes like Kong in Skull Island and Rocket in Planet of the Apes. He's bringing his monkey business to the MCU now. The all-star cast keeps growing with the addition of the leftover Holdovers and Fargo's Carrie Coon as Proxima Midnight. Coon's casting wasn't even announced until, like, the same month the movie dropped. Recruiting new Avengers at this critical point is a challenge. According to Tom Von Lawler, the MCU overlords do extensive background checks to make sure their newbies aren't prone to controversy or spoilers. The two kryptonites of good actors. Hell, prior to release, we didn't even know who Peter Dinklage was playing. All we knew is that, quote, we'd recognize him. Which, like, thanks Russos, that's probably why you cast him in the first place. Fans lost it when they learned that Brie Larson would be joining the MCU as Captain Marvel. The Russos must have lost something too, because for a while it was unclear whether Captain Marvel was going to be in Infinity War, whether her appearance got cut, or if it was even there in the first place. In the comic timeline, Civil War takes place after Infinity War. The Avengers are still an active team at the time of Thanos' arrival, which must have been convenient. Though it is pretty crazy to have gone through all that universe-ending destruction together and then still gotten mad over some legal paperwork. For the MCU, Civil War was intentionally moved first. Kevin Feige and the Russos wanted to split up the Avengers as a setup to add further tension to the inevitability of Thanos' arrival. Fans have noted the absence of Hawkeye across all the marketing material. Despite reports that he's in the movie, he's really only been on like one magazine cover by EEW. Fans even photoshopped him into the posters and cut him into the trailers to fill the arrow-shaped holes in their hearts. The promo material has been mostly top-notch, but Elizabeth Olsen called out her Empire magazine article for photoshopping her face beyond recognition. Seriously guys, what was there to change? She already looks like Elizabeth Olsen. The Russos have tricked audiences with fake trailer footage before, and they did it again at the D23 Expo. In the sequence there, Thor had both his eyes. Following the release of Ragnarok, however, we've seen the real version of the scene where he has an eye patch. The trailer drew in 230 million views within 24 hours, beating the previous record held by the movie It. That'd be impressive, only 200 million of those views were just me, so, you know. Take it as you will. The marketing team hid tickets to the film behind Infinity War posters. It's a cool Wonka-esque idea, but doesn't that mean people are running around tearing down posters? I thought just DC fans were doing that. The film's working production title was Mary Lou. The previous Avengers films were codenamed Group Hug and After Party, and what any of those mean is anybody's guess. Production began January 23rd, 2017, with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pratt, and Tom Holland joining forces day one. As usual, Iron Man is coming into this film with a new suit. This time though, it's his modern classic bleeding edge armor, which is made of nanites and stored inside Tony's body. It doesn't take a whole ton of detective work to see why fans are excited about seeing Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch in a movie together. Both actors have played Sherlock Holmes, and they'll need to put those heads together to stop Thanos. Following their team up in Homecoming, Tony and Peter are working together again. Downey Jr. says it's to the credit of the writers that they realized the dynamic was so popular and decided to bring it back. Avengers that avenge together stay together, and watch Avengers movies together. Robert Downey Jr. hosted a screening of Black Panther for Tom Holland, which is definitely one way of crossing over that these movies have yet to do. Spider-Man may be Marvel's wisecracking hero, but it was Chris Pratt's jokes that kept Tom Holland cracking up. They had a hard time doing scenes together because Holland would break into laughter. No awkward reunion is complete without commenting on each other's new haircuts. Chris's Hemsworth and Evans ad-libbed a scene in which they do just that, having effectively swapped haircuts since they last saw each other in Age of Ultron. Thor's moving on past Mjolnir with a new weapon, Stormbreaker. The half-hammer, half-axe shares a name with the weapon used by Beta Ray Bill. Hey, in the comics he could wield Mjolnir, so it's only fair they share now. Since Thor evolved so much in Ragnarok, Chris Hemsworth wasn't sure which version of him would be appearing in this movie. He was so protective of Thor's new persona that he actually called the Russos out of concern it would be scrapped. Likewise, Dave Bautista was also worried about the Russo reign. Since James Gunn had been the driving force of the Guardians to this point, he was relieved to learn that the Russos were extremely collaborative with his part. To that end, James Gunn actually wrote some of the dialogue for the Guardians in this movie, particularly in the scenes in which they meet the Avengers. Gunn's distinct voice helped the interactions feel more natural. Despite its recent release, Guardians 2 actually took place years ago, sometime around 2014. That means by this movie, we haven't seen them in some time, so we have years of catching up to do. Black Widow is rocking a blonde Widow look in this movie. Scarlett Johansson has said that the new do was meant to show that some time and adventures have gone by since we last saw her, while also nodding to her undercover status. With her short blonde hairdo, Natasha now looks like the other Black Widow from the comics, Yelena Belova. Black Panther co-stars Winston Duke and Lupita Nyong'o saw the first Avengers together in 2012. They mused about what it would be like to be in a film like that. Well, at least one of them's in this movie now. You've made it, M'Baku. Infinity War is the middle of a 3-movie Hulk arc that began with Ragnarok and ends with Avengers 4. According to Mark Ruffalo, part of that development is that the Hulk now has the vocabulary and sentence structure of a 5-year-old. James Buchanan Barnes is always getting new nicknames, from Bucky to the Winter Soldier to his latest moniker, the White Wolf. It's his title in this film, first dropped in the Black Panther credit scene. The White Wolf is straight from the comics, but it wasn't Bucky. In fact, it was T'Challa's older foster brother, Hunter, the leader of the Hatut Zeraze. But we saw Black Panther and T'Challa doesn't have a brother, and Okoye is the War Dog leader, so the position's open. Meanwhile, his BFF Steve Rogers is going by a new name, Nomad. When Cap goes rogue from the government in the comic books, he sheds the stars and stripes and dons a darker costume, much like his current getup. In the trailer, we get a shot of Vision in his human form. In the comics, his alter ego is named Victor Shade, and Vision uses it to blend in with the rest of mankind. If Scarlet Witch ever got a standalone film, Elizabeth Olsen knows exactly what plotline she'd want. The House of M sees Vision and Wanda suffering a miscarriage and imagining a fake family for them. So, not exactly a feel-good summer romp then. What did that other comic book villain say? What doesn't kill you makes you stranger? That proves true for Doctor Strange, who's coming into this movie with a full mastery of his powers. Apparently, he was trapped in that time loop a lot longer than we saw, which gave him time to perfect the skills. Alright, let's talk about who's not in this movie. It might be faster. Sadly, the Defenders won't be making an appearance, but it's not for lack of trying. The Russos considered bridging them in, but deemed it impossible considering the sheer amount of characters and directors they were already coordinating with. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. unfortunately won't be making their big screen debut this time around either. However, the collateral damage of the event will impact the show. As the only TV series influenced by the movies, it's a hard thing to avoid. Michael Rooker was spotted on set, but denied his involvement, which of course meant he was in it. When we saw his character died in Guardians 2, however, it was deemed he was just pulling our leg. The Russos began as comedy directors, and they love slipping in Easter eggs from their old projects. Winter Soldier featured Community's Danny Pudi, Civil War had the stair car from Arrested Development, and the new film will undoubtedly have some kind of gag from the Michael Hurwitz show as well, so keep your eyes peeled. Post-credit scenes have become a staple of the MCU, but Infinity War almost didn't have one. Without going into much detail, the Russo brothers revealed that they didn't think they had to do one. Coming in at 149 minutes, Infinity War is the longest MCU movie to date. So, pro tip, don't have a big drink when you see it. Unlike the Russo brothers' previous Marvel outings, Infinity War will have a slew of deleted scenes, almost as big as the cast. This is because they played with all the character interactions in the writing and allowed improv on the set, leading to an excess of material. In honor of the 10th anniversary of the MCU, all the stars and directors assembled for a class photo. A reunion so star-studded, you could probably see it from space. Infinity War marks the 10-year anniversary of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, almost to the day. The first MCU flick, Iron Man, came out on May 2nd, 2008, just a few days before this movie hits theaters. The April/May release date isn't just a point of tradition. Kevin Feige has confessed that the various national holidays that occur around this time of year spur moviegoers to the theaters. Iron Man 2 and Thor both enjoyed this boost, and it's been in practice ever since. The film's original premiere date, May 4th, 2018, would have been 6 years after the original Avengers. Time flies when you're, no it doesn't, I've been waiting forever for this. The release date was knocked forward to April 27th, thanks to Robert Downey Jr. The MCU godfather had a fun Twitter exchange with Marvel in which he recommended the earlier release, and you just can't say no to that face. He's Iron Man. So why'd the date change? The dominating theory is that Disney did not want Deadpool 2 and Solo, two of its own May releases, getting cannibalized by Infinity War's popularity. We can only see so many movies, guys, damn. This is the second time an Avengers movie was immediately followed by an Ant-Man movie. The original Paul Rudd adventure came out next after Age of Ultron, wrapping up Phase 2. It's still not really clear what Ant-Man and the Wasp is actually about based on the trailer, but the Russos have indicated that elements of it will directly tie into Infinity War. That led many to believe they're on a secret mission. Infinity War is the 7th installment of the MCU's Phase 3, with only Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Avengers 4 before the phase's conclusion. Infinity War is the 19th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. Here's to another 19, guys. Pre-sale tickets for Infinity War already outsold the sales for the previous 7 Marvel movies combined. Talk about being better than the sum of your parts. The Russo brothers will also be directing the 4th Avengers movie, which began production immediately after the 3rd. Ain't no rest for the super. Infinity War and the as-of-yet unnamed 4th Avengers movie were announced during the Part 1, Part 2 craze that dominated blockbusters. As such, they were originally slated to be 2 halves of this movie. They later dropped the subtitles. According to Kevin Feige, they're 2 distinct movies, not one story cut in half. Justice League, DC's team-up film, also tried the Part 1, Part 2 approach and backed out of it before release. As of now, the 4th Avengers movie is still unnamed. The Russos want people to watch and take in Infinity War before they start speculating on the next movie, which likely means the title is at least part spoiler. Like Avengers, Iron Man just died.